Oh, well, yes. And we had a few celebratory scotches last night. The travel agent, first of all, said there was absolutely nothing available on the late. There was one later flight at 11:20, which gives me 40 minutes grace left on my visa, but it was full according to the records. But it turns out that the airlines sort of allocate seats in various classes around the world, and although it was full from New Zealand, there was one available. So for $600, they managed to get me on the later flight. So that was after I had agreed to be transported about 6 hours from the previous place on the ship. But yes, it all worked out in the end. But it was a bit of a stressful few hours, Ron. Over.
Yeah, Roger.
This damn thing is not showing.
All the places now.
Yeah, hopefully. The other good news for me yesterday, I went and picked up, there's a really good boot maker in Orewa, and he took my foot, because the problem I was having with wearing the boot, the moon boot, is that it's quite high, and I didn't have sort of a decent walking shoe for the left side. So he took my sneaker and built it up. Honestly, it looks as if it's come out of the, I don't know, can't even remember what brand it is, but anyway, it looks as if it's come straight out of the shop. He did a beautiful job of building up the sole, even put a non-skid bottom on it, and it's really easy to walk around now with being level on both sides of the body. It's amazing when one foot is higher than the other. It puts stress on knees and hips, and it was really quite uncomfortable. But now, I'm sure I can climb mountains. So there you are. Hey, good morning to everybody else that has joined us. This is Gulf Harbour Radio, ZMH 286, on our last day before we go on a month's break. It's a very, very cold day here. 10 degrees, according to the roof, but the thermometer just outside the door said, what did you say it was? 5 degrees. It's really, really cold. Southwest wind, 6 knots, and 1003.8, but rising. So definitely time for me to blow this pop stand. It was clearing a little bit. It was 90% when I wrote this down before, but about 80% cloud now. And so, I think the fire will be going on shortly and staying on for the rest of the day.
4.8 C at the bridge.
4.8 C at the bridge, according to David. Boy, tell you what, it's a real nippy day, and I'm sure all of you are sitting there thinking, oh, thank goodness we're not there. 29 degrees in Wallace. Good morning to Whistler up there. I think you're probably there by yourselves now. It's a sunny morning there, 10 to 13 from the east, 20% cloud cover. Kuperi and Pilgrim are having a really good trip to Port Vila. Very close to each other, actually. Pilgrim have got about 83 to go, and Kuperi about 100 to go. Southeast, sort of 12 to 15. Kuperi reckon it's about 15 southeast, but they're not too far from Port Vila, so they'll be enjoying that at least tomorrow anyway. So hopefully David didn't tell me if they're going to have some good winds for the rest of the day. We'll wait and see what he comes up with shortly. Last news for you for a month. Everybody's going on holiday. Peter Mott's going on holiday for a month. All of the politicians in America are going on holiday for a month. So you'll just have to hope that the world is fairly calm and that you can just enjoy no news for a month. What about it? There was another Democratic contenders debate last night. They are gearing up for the next election. The main contenders were Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, and they ended up on the same side because it turned out to be a debate between the progressives, of which those are two, versus moderates, who are arguing that if the progressives go too far to the left, they will just push everyone that's going to be voting towards Mr. Trump. I think it's really hard for us to realize. We think of America as a sort of a modern place, but there is a large number of very, very conservative people particularly in the South and particularly in the Republican ranks. And that is going to be an interesting result. But anyway, there is another debate tonight with the other contenders. Tonight there'll be Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, who will be the main ones to be looking at. North Korea are at it again. Oh, goodness gracious. This is sort of becoming... I should do a little list of sort of the main news items and tick them off. And when it gets to 10 times I've talked about it, I won't talk about it anymore. But anyway, North Korea have launched another couple of short-range ballistic missiles. So South Korea had an emergency meeting of the National Security Council. It's really puzzling to know what Kim Jong-un is trying to achieve. He really is Mr. Rocket Man, isn't he? He's meant to have a United States Secretary of State Mike Pompeo visiting him within the month. I guess Mr. Pompeo is not going on holiday. But he just doesn't seem to want to do anything that would make people a little bit more accommodating. Anyway, he's certainly got money to send ballistic missiles into the sea, and Japan aren't very happy about it either. Talking about the sea, Greenland had its coldest year last year in decades, but this year is getting the European heat wave now, so they're very worried about the amount of ice that's melting. 64 million Olympic-sized pools. Now that's a little bit hard. I love it when they give statistics like that. All right, so that's the statistic. It's quite a lot of water. Anyway, 64 metric tons, if that makes any more sense to you. But it is a lot of fresh water going into the Atlantic, and of course they are predicting that this will change fishing and the weather and all sorts of levels of water around the eastern seaboard of the United States.
How do they know that it's not seawater melting?
Well, I guess ice is usually fresh water, isn't it?
But it's sea ice.
Okay, all right. I'll get the boot out. No, you just wait your turn. All right. In Afghanistan, this is one of those ones that sort of keeps on going. This is America's longest running war, by the way. But up until the end of July, which we've just finished, there were more civilians killed by NATO and Afghan forces than there were the Taliban. So in the first half of the year, 1,366 civilians have died, and only 38% of these have been caused by the Taliban. Mr. Trump wants to get US troops out of Afghanistan before the 2020 elections.
Yes.
So I think that would be something that everyone would agree with. Things haven't changed much in Afghanistan, sadly, despite the amount of effort that's been put in by coalition forces. Yesterday, a bus went over a mine, and 28 people, or 34 if you read Al Jazeera, got blown to bits. So just things that have not changed one little bit in Afghanistan. Talking about the USA, whilst we're on that subject, the Feds are expected to cut interest rates today, or it might be tomorrow their time. First time now in over a decade, which kind of indicates that growth is slowing in the United States. Mr. Trump won't be happy about that for the election. Iran, here's another one that we have to talk about quite often. They've offered to hold talks with their rivals, Saudi Arabia, but they don't want Mr. Pompeo to come to Tehran to sort anything out or help sort things out. They really haven't made much progress on the Straits of Hormuz problem. The UK and France, as well as the USA, have ships there to try and protect things. And the US, in fact, is trying to get Germany to participate. They're not wanting to, but it's probably about time that they contributed to what's going on to protect the flow of goods through the Straits of Hormuz. A boat containing 116 migrants has been held in Sicily for 5 days. The Italians, who have been getting the brunt of these folk coming up from Africa in the Middle East, sort of both really, have tried to take a hard stand, but now the EU has decided that they will let them disembark and they will share the responsibility of looking after them. Italy's Mr. Salvini, I think he's in charge of that sort of thing. He's also their deputy prime minister. He's not very happy because he knows that they will probably all end up in Italy, but the other countries, Germany, France, I think it was Portugal, said that they would share. So I guess he'll try and talk them into something like that. Just briefly, Japan are scrapping the entire nuclear facility at Fukushima. That's the one that got badly affected by the tsunami a few years ago. Boy, it was quite a few years ago now. Protests are ongoing in Hong Kong, and they are turning to be a bit worrying because China are said to be amassing troops on the southern border, so things could get a little bit difficult there in Hong Kong. Arabic and Muslim symbols have been ordered taken down in Beijing. Beijing seems to be sort of flexing their muscles in all sorts of areas. Swine fever in Asia has opened up some red meat markets for various countries. Colombia are looking to profit from that. New Zealand now sends more red meat to China than the USA, and our politicians are getting very concerned that we're getting too locked into business with China because things could change rather rapidly, leaving people with nowhere to go. I always find it amazing that we send beef to the USA, but did you think that the USA is having vast areas of land where cattle are grazing and being fed and so on and so forth? But I guess that's world trade. We always got fascinated when we lived in California that we would get oranges from Florida, and Florida would get oranges from California.
Yeah, right.
So there you are. Well, to end on a positive note, a female rhinoceros at San Diego Zoo has given birth to America's first southern white rhino. So that's good news. I suppose it would be more interesting if it was a male rhinoceros. But anyway, this rhinoceros, I don't think they really needed to say female, has got quite an exciting new animal to have a look at the San Diego Zoo, which is rather stunning. Okay, that's about it for the news this morning.
It'd be a racist birth.
Yes. Eagle's Wings, good morning to you. Port Vila, 4 knots east-northeast. The folk trying to get there today are not going to be very enthused about that. 4 knots east-northeast, partly cloudy, 1015. Thank you for that. Avalon at Sawini Bay, good morning to you guys. South-southeast 6 to 10, partly cloudy, 1010. And thank you for the holiday greetings. I tell you what, there's some people out there want wind for kiting, and others and trying to get to where they're going, and others like it nice and calm for diving and so on. So we'll hand over the microphone shortly. But I did want to remind you that this is our last day. We'll be back again, I think it's about the 6th of September. It's on the website. Back on the 6th of September. David will be here if anybody has any concerns about the weather. And if there's something really dramatic, he'll send an email through the CruiserSat.net system. But he will be here. Our email is ghradio@extra.co.nz. So ghradio@extra.co.nz. And if you're really missing news about the weather, you can go onto the website, ghradio.co.nz, and have a look at some of the weather articles that David has got, particularly if you're thinking of coming back again this direction. So at some stage in the future. So there's plenty there to get your brains working on so that you don't go rusty over the next month, just flopping about in the water enjoying yourselves. All right, so here's David, and we'll take. I better just pause for anything in particular that people might want. We'll do a couple of minutes before 7:30. Is there anything? He will be covering the passage Ganesha going from Newcastle westward, and he will be covering Excel's maybe stop in Futuna and going on to Port Vila. That will be covered. Is there anything else?
Okay, I got something heard there, and well, as Patricia said, last radio broadcast for a month, and also as she indicated, I'll certainly be available via email for any special requirements that you've got, weather questions, that sort of thing. I was going to give you some information on instability. I may do that, and I may put it on the cruiser set net or NAT, whatever you call it, for you to peruse. Probably easier in writing anyway to review. Anyway, our synoptic picture today is almost a mirror image of the last 4 days. This is the slow-moving high to the east, 1033 millibar, still very strong. Then the complex low pattern, which is just slightly east of New Zealand now, centered just slightly to the east. Actually over the Chathams if you had to pick a center spot. And finally then the Oz high, that's still west of Tasmania, trying to ridge toward Fiji, and really not much will have changed by lunch Saturday, the 3rd of August. What I've just given you is pretty much what it's going to look like then. The trio, we'll call it the trio, shifts east just a few degrees, but otherwise it's going to be virtually the same pattern for a while now. We'll see a little bit more ridging up in the island, so there will be more trade winds for you folks up there. But there is cyclonic flow from New Zealand and north of New Zealand up to about 25 south. So in this area, you could expect southwest to west winds. But then if you're north of 25, then we get the shift to the southeast. So 25 south then becomes more or less the ridge axis, if you can picture that in your mind. Now a frontal band does approach New Caledonia from the south. It's coming from one of the depressions that are near or over New Zealand. Our Solomon's Trough, still present, runs out of gas at about 170 east. It was quite active for many nautical miles eastward, but somehow or other, last night it just sort of started to break up at about 170 east. Now we have a quasi-stationary front that shifted a little bit too. That runs from Torres Strait, goes over the Louisiades and then southern Vanuatu, and then it goes on to the southern Cooks from there. For Wallis, partly cloudy. Today there's going to be some, but there'll be isolated showers. The wind's about 12 to 15 from what I can see, and there'll be gusts getting up to maybe 20 knots or so off and on during the day. Now the trough has shifted to the southwest just a wee bit, so it's going to bring quite a bit of nice conditions Friday. Sun, quite nice. But then it gets partly cloudy again on Saturday, so comes and goes. Futuna looks like showers today, with a yacht or two wanting to get into Futuna. The winds east-southeast at 10 knots, maybe getting up to 18 at times, and it looks like about the same on Friday. So if you're going to make the stop at Futuna, the only thing is when you get to the pass, either you can get in or you can't. It depends on what the weather's doing, what the visibility is like. That's the main thing, is visibility. Now down in Tonga, Vavau particularly on imagery looks rather decent. Clouds are present for the Hapais and Tonga Tapu as well. Winds though for Vavau, where the bulk of you are, 10 to 15 out of the southeast. Friday, showers I think are back, and so are stronger winds. We'll be looking at about 15 to 20 out of the southeast, and later tomorrow afternoon, maybe looking at 25 knots, so it may get up a bit at that point. Saturday, more showers yet, southeast about 15 to 20, and probably showers on Sunday as well, as this trough, which has been going back and forth, is going to be shifting once more north. So those of you that are in the Hawkeyes should see fairly light air this morning, and then picking up to about 15 to 20 out of the southeast a little bit later today, and scattered showers tomorrow as well for the Hawkeyes. And a few actuals. Vaval this morning, calm, scattered to broken. They had fog, quite a bit of fog in Vaval, very, very early, before the sun came up. 5 a.m. they had rain, barometer 1013. The Hawkeyes easterly at 7, scattered, barometer 1013 as well. And Tongatapu, same barometric pressure, southeast 5, scattered cloud as well. And they had earlier showers down there in Tongatapu. Over to Fiji now, looking at satellite imagery, the cloud bands are quite numerous, especially over Viti Levu, Kendavu, the southern Koro Sea, and the southern Lao. The winds, well, for the most part, light to moderate. For most of the group, I'd say east-southeast about 10 to 15, but 15 to 20 for Kendavu and western Viti Levu. Now, the winds pick up Friday, a little bit more breeze tomorrow. Southeast, probably getting up to around 20 knots, and there will be some areas of 25 knots. And where are those areas? I would say that Tui Rock Pass, Kendavu Pass, the northern Lao is another area that looks like it will have some nice fresh winds. And the fresh winds should continue through the weekend. And some observations from early this morning. Undue point was southeast 10, 10, 12 on the barometer. The northern Yasawas, east-southeast 9, 10, 12 there. Vanua Balavu, south-southeast 6, 10, 16 on the barometer. Nandi, southeast 7, 10, 12. Nassori, calm, 10, 13. Matuku, south-southeast 5, 10, 13 there as well. You notice there's not much of a gradient here. Ono, southeast 5, and 10, 14 on the barometer. Radar, that scan this morning shows heavy returns right around Nassori. A lot of rain there. Not much elsewhere, though. I'm looking at the Yasawas. So there are bits, so there'll be returns, returns, I should say, in the Yasawas, and particularly west of the Yasawas. I don't think anybody would be west of them, but that's what the radar is picking up. Looking out a bit for Fiji, wind-wise, I see fresh to strong southeasterlies Tuesday and Wednesday of next week, and they'll be up to about 25 knots for the most part. So that's a bit of long range for you there. And looking at Vanuatu on imagery, I see quite a bit of stratosphere running north from Anisha, caught up in the lower level flow. But well to the north, up around the banks and the northern islands there, I can see the edge of the trough that's coming in from the Solomons. And some actuals for you, Sola, southeast 20, so yes, there's quite a bit of wind well to the north up there, broken to overcast in the barometer 10, 12. But then as we come south a bit, Santo, southeast 9, not much, scattered to overcast 10, 13. Fate east 3, hardly anything in the Port Vila area, as was reported as well. Scattered cloud, 10, 15 on the barometer. Tano was calm, scattered, 10, 15. And down there in Nisham, south at 6, scattered in 10, 16 there as well. And looking at the winds for the overall chain, it's looking like it will be out of the southeast today, and probably by afternoon getting up to the 20 knot range. Doesn't sound like that now, but I think the winds will come up a bit. And all that is going to be due to the strong high that's developing to the south, the Oz high, as it's ridging in that direction. Okay, over to New Caledonia now. It shows scattered cloud in the lagoon, quite a bit of scattered cloud, and the first band of the New Zealand front is approaching. You can see it. Winds quite fresh this morning, southeast in the 20 knot range for the southern lagoon. Not a good wind speed for the ELOs. Maybe easing 15 to 20 a little bit later, but even that wind is a little bit strong for those small anchorages. Radar shows lots of showers in the southern lagoon. So there you go on that. Not all that pleasant, really. Winds tomorrow, east-southeast 10 to 15. Saturday, 15 to 20. Now to the north of Grand Terre, way up on the top of Grand Terre, for those of you that are wanting to head towards Torres Strait, I would say by Sunday, you'll be looking at partly cloudy skies, winds east-southeast about 20 knots or so. So it will be blowing a bit up there. And then if you're continuing on to Torres Strait, looking at Sunday as an example, the Coral Sea looks quite rough. The seas southeast, or rather the winds southeast, 25 to 30. And probably easing a bit Tuesday and Wednesday. I'll call it 15 to 20. And then quite possibly east-southeast to southeast. So it's shifting just a little bit, but it's all part of the high that's building. That high is at that point going to be midway between Australia and New Zealand. Yep, right in the middle of the Tasman between New Zealand and Australia. So that's where our little high is going to sit, and that'll be producing good steady winds to get to Torres Strait. And that's about all I've got from what I could see. I can give you more detail if you need it. Anyhow, I'll be available, like I said, over the next few weeks. If you have any questions, yeah, we'll go from there. So here's the chief.
Well, I'm sure Pilgrim and Kupiri will be interested, and rather happy to hear that that wind is going up. Another couple of reports came in. Citrus Tart down there at Kindavu have got quite a lot of cloud, 98.5% drizzle, 10 knots from the south. Wundo, as you mentioned, pretty calm there. Exocet Strike reports 24 degrees, 8 to 15 from the east, 20% cloud cover. And for those of you who know David and Rosalind on Barefoot, they're looking at dragging themselves away from Brisbane. They seem to enjoy it there, to come north to Newcastle. I don't know whether I mentioned, but Erie 2 and Silhouette have decided to give up on that. They're up on the coast of Queensland somewhere, enjoying rather warm temperatures there. But certainly we get quite envious of the Queensland coast at this time of year. Okay, is there anybody with anything that David has not covered? Please call. We haven't heard from Messatroy for a long time. I wonder what they're doing up there in Gar. All right, folks, I haven't heard anything. Are there any relays? No, nothing heard. All right, well, I'm going to be enjoying myself over the next month, heading to Armenia, Georgia, Azerbaijan, and then I fly from Baku up to Moscow and then back down to Astrakhan, and I'm going up the river. So I'm sort of having a marine, if you call it that, fresh water though, a trip up the Volga River, going through all sorts of interesting spots on my way to Moscow, where I fly out in the nick of time because the Russians only give you the barest minimum of visa access. And once your trip is finished, that's it, you're on your way. So hopefully the flights will be on time and the ship arrives on time. Otherwise, I will be in a world of hurt. Okay, thanks for the greetings on the streaming. And Whistler said somebody was in fact calling. I wonder who that was. I'll just have a little pause and then we'll leave you with the frequency. No, I've not heard anything. It might have been Excel. We don't tend to hear them, but I think David covered that passage anyway. Oh, it was Quintessa. Goodness, I'm not getting much from Numia at the moment. Good morning to you, Alan. Didn't hear you at all. That's interesting. Mind you, there is a lot of competition in Noumea. But anyway, hope all is going well with you. And well, you could send us an email. Tell us what's going on with things. Okay, cheers everybody. Enjoy your month, and we'll be back again with you in September. The frequency's all yours.